So it's been a couple months. The last time I was here, it was like, what? Early February? And now it's the end of March. TFF is in about 3 weeks. So my fursuit build has been upgraded from a build that I had plenty of time on to a build that I have not so much time on. And I will never learn from this, ever. She's not quite symmetrical, but like, nothing is, so that's fine. I'm just hoping that I won't cause a huge issue when it comes to the actual tape pattern. But I'll just pick the prettier side to do the tape pattern on, and we'll just hope for the best. But before I get into that, I do need to add some lining to this head. So the first order of business is to get the inside. Oh, that's a shot. I don't know if I can show that on YouTube. I need to put this duct tape into here and make a tape pattern so that I can have actual stuff to sew. Luckily there's a nice center line in the back because the center line is not straight in the slightest. The little eyepiece here, mouth, which was very difficult to do. And then the inside, which looks like a whole mess, but I promise it's... Actually, I don't promise anything. This is my first time doing it, and it's not a tutorial. You're just here to watch me suffer. I will now attempt to start taking this out. Cutting the tape out from the inside was a little bit hard, but after some perseverance, I finally got them done. Ta-da! Alright, so I'm going to go cut these patterns out of their paper, also clean them up a bit, and cut them out on this lycra, black lycra from Joann's, rest in peace. We'll just see how it goes, and I will come back to y'all with the cut out pieces. Okay, I actually lied to you. I'm going to do the tape pattern for it, so I only need to do half. You know what, I'm just gonna choose the prettier side, the side that I think is easiest, this side. So, starting with making the center line like I did with the lining, just placing down a piece of tape and going through there. I guess if you're like an artist watching and you also do fursuits, could you tell me if your art style looks like your fursuit style, or are they like just completely night and day? I just want to know if that's like a new thing that I have just thought of right now, my first original thought ever, or if this is a known fact. Alright, I've got almost this entire muzzle done. It's looking super duper cute. I like the taping stage because everything becomes one cohesive unit, and which I really like. I am worried about the cheeks right here, because as you can see, this one is actually lined up with the mouth, and this one is not even close. So I'm worried about how that will look like in the final product in the furring stage, because I'm only taping up one side, but we're just gonna play it by ear. Taping was a very tedious process, but honestly, I still really enjoyed it. I think because the stakes weren't too high, I just literally put some duct tape on foam and called it a day. And here is the half fully taped up. And once she was taped up, I went ahead and marked down all of her markings on her head, as well as the fur directions that they would be going. I also added cut and registration marks, which are those lines that you see on the side, to help me figure out this giant puzzle at the end. Alright, it's a brand new day. I have fully taped and marked out my duct tape pattern. Got my coffee. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to cut around all of these registration marks and lines. Orange on this side, orange is the right side, pretty sure. Yeah, I'm not very good at left and right, so we'll see how this turns out. So the way I'm laying out these patterns to make things a little bit more easier in the future is everything that's mirrored is going to be facing this way. So that way I always know where my center line is. And I'm also laying it so that the bottom is always down. So that way I know which direction these would all go. I'm kind of terrified of the face because there will be needing some darts here and there because of all the curves. I think I have it down. I'm understanding, I'm getting it. So I will be back in a bit. Set the lighting off camera because it was honestly one of the most cursed things I've ever sewn. And I also accidentally managed to close the mouth hole. Yeah, don't do that. But here it is in all its floppy glory, and before we install that, we must first take off all of our tape patterns on the base. This was one part that I thought I would be pretty good at, but once I started doing it, I found it very challenging. I just didn't really know where to put the darts or where to separate the parts of the fursuit head, so it felt like a little bit I could have added more darts or I could have not added some darts, but anyways, it worked out in the end and we have our pattern pieces. I could finally move into furring the head, which I was the scaredest about. Here I am cutting out the nose and attaching it together. And for the rest of the pieces, I just took their block of fur that they corresponded to and slowly cut them out. To make sure that the fur was all facing the same direction, I always pointed the direction towards me. Once I had marked them out, I cut out the big section of them and then slowly cut them out in individual pieces. Once the pieces were cut out, I also clipped them together so I would know what to sew later on. I think cutting out the fur took around 2 hours, and that's just because I was trying my hardest to not cut the actual long fibers of the fur, and instead using my scissors' very, very pointy tip to just cut the backing. Here is an example of the eye dot all sewn together. As you can see, it has one big middle seam in the middle and 2 darts on either side. That gives it its very cute little dome shape. I was a little bit worried here when I was test fitting it onto the foam base because just about how furry it was, but I tried to remind myself it's just because it's not shaved down. And now it was time to sew the rest of the face up. I decided to use my machine to sew all of the face up because I did not want to do any hand sewing because I don't like hand sewing. For my next suit, I would definitely do some hand sewing on the face, especially some of her smaller markings like the diamond on her nose, because that was extremely difficult to do on the machine. Luckily, she has very large markings and very large swaths of color, so it wasn't a lot of sewing and I could do it with my machine. I just used a zigzag stitch right along the edge of the fabric to make sure that everything was fully encased and it wasn't too bulky. Here is the first test fit of her fur onto the base with just 1/2, and as you can see, it's a little weird, but that's mostly because it's not glued down. Now, if I were to make this fursuit again, I would not do this, which is attaching the ear fully formed inside of the head. This caused a lot of issues when it came to the gluing stage, mostly because I couldn't reach glue into that little ear cavity. So next time I would leave the ears as 2 separate halves, the front and the back. Another really annoying part of this was just trying to shove all of the fur into the seams so that they wouldn't poke through. It was just so challenging and required so many clips, and I still had so much fur just like slip through, and it was super annoying. but it was worth it so I could see how the final face would look all sewn together, which is horrifying. This is giving Buffalo Bill. And before I glued anything down, I decided to do a little full test fit of the fur onto the head base, and after finagling this fur around for a while, I finally got it all on. And I was a little bit worried here because it was looking absolutely crazy how it was so like puffy and baggy, but I knew that would get a lot better once I finally had it glued down. But before we could do that, I had to glue in the lining, which luckily for me was pretty straightforward and easy. Just gotta shove it in and slowly glue it down. I started with the muzzle first because it was the most complex and I wanted to get it out of the way. Then once the muzzle was secured, I just slowly worked my way up the head, glued in the eyeballs, and glued in the top. I have done everything possible in order to avoid this moment, because I am not looking forward to having to glue this skin suit onto my fur base. Mostly because this was a whole lot of work and I get to finagle around fur and foam and hot glue for the next however long this takes, and I'm worried it's not going to turn out good. So I did a couple of the like fur fit tests as I was sewing it, and I know a lot of fursuit makers say that the stage when you're gluing the fur onto the face is like the most awkward looking stage because all the fur is really like baggy and puffy if it's not glued down, and when it is glued down you still need to do all of the shaving bits to it. So I'm just trying to power through and get through this ugly awkward stage until it's done. Just gotta trust the process, but I don't have much faith. As you can see, I've already completely lined it to the best of my ability. It's such an awkward pose. Why do I keep doing that? Anyways, it is lined in there to the best of my abilities. I think the lining turned out actually pretty decent. Alright, so I think I just have to rip off the band-aid, and I think the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna glue on the ears. So that way the ears have a nice base and they're sort of like a little holding point for the fur for me to glue down the rest. But I think they are one of the most difficult parts to glue down. You can really see how lopsided these ears are if you look from the top down. She's a little quirky, okay? This ear is like a little bit baggy, especially like right here. That's probably because they're not symmetrical at all. That's why this one fit on a lot better and this one's a little wrong. Alright, I think the plan is to slowly just keep gluing all the way down the face. So that would mean the forehead spots and area is up next, which I'm also a little worried about. I'm not hating it. I know she's in her puppy stage, but I'm not hating it currently, which is good sign. And I did cut off the cheeks like points because they didn't match up in the slightest and it was causing it to like pull off into one direction. So I just sort of left the nub here so that it would have something to hook onto, similar to the ears. So there's a little bit of like baggage here at the bottom, so like when I put the chin in its right spot, it sort of bags down. So I think I'm going to fix that by gluing on the chin first and then just sort of shifting and tugging the cream parts until they lay flat. So I think the last little bits of glue that we have to do, here's what we're looking like, is the eye holes, the under part, the back and the underneath back. We got her glued on, and it doesn't look terrible, which I'm the most excited about. So that means I actually want to finish this fursuit head. I get very demotivated when things don't look perfect the first time I do it. But in reality, I probably just need to like continue the project and it'll be fine. I just cannot stand the trust the process stage of most crafting. But honestly, every time I've trusted the process, everything has turned out to be just fine, which is crazy to think about. I'm not gonna sew these pieces closed, I'm just gonna glue them together. Same with the back, I'm just going to glue it together, so, because that, I don't want to hand sew anything. Screw that. We have her all glued down. This looks a lot better than what I started off with the try-ons of the fur. It was very saggy and not really sticking to the form. My muzzle is huge, actually, now that I have it all furred up. But once it gets down to the trimming part, I think it'll be fine. Gonna give it a little try-on right now for y'all so y'all can see. Ooh. How do I look? I can only see it of this eye, really. Okay. It's cute. I like it. I'll have to like put up my hair or something because I don't have that neck piece. But I like it as well as I can see in my viewfinder. I'm gonna go look in the mirror, but the last part will be trimming this down and doing the eyes, which I think won't take that long. Here is a closer shot of her all glued down. I'm actually really excited about how this turned out. Her eyebrows look a little crazy, all fluffy like that, but shaving is coming up now. We're finally on to the shaving portion of this part, and I'm a little scared. I've never used a like clipper before, so I did some practice on some scrap, and that's about as low as I can get it on this brown, which isn't too low. The pile's still pretty thick. So I'm hoping that I can just get it trimmed down and a little bit less super duper furry, as well as define some of the markings, especially around the ears and the eyes and the nose. So I think I just gotta start. I cut down to the backing at the very beginning, so now I have to like make sure everything else is following that sort of same length, but like it's so choppy. How do I fix that? So let's take down this back ear a little bit more to match the length of the fur. I might go a little bit shorter as I do the entire head just to see if I can define some more shapes, but I really like that length. You can clearly see the seams right here, which I don't love. Maybe I could hide that with some, just trying to brush it out or something, but we're looking good. I like this side. I'm gonna do the other side now, which is a lot fluffier. Can really see the lopsidedness of it all. It's my first time. I'm allowed a couple mistakes, okay? Okay? As I predicted, this white is an absolute nightmare to shave. It is just patchy and awful. The white part just went straight to backing.
But if this brings you just a little closer.
So much nicer. They're not even remotely the same size, but that's okay. How are we looking? We're looking cute? I think we're looking pretty cute. For the rest of her shave, I just continued on refining the shapes and just going even lower on the fur just to make sure it was all cohesive and looked nice. I also did her eye blanks off camera. I just used some eye mesh and painted it green, and then I attached it into the eye blank, just hot gluing it onto the back, before attaching her little eyelashes made out of fleece onto her head. And now it's time for the reveal. This was such a fun project to do and really tested my crafting abilities, and I even had time to make her little tail and paws for TFF this year, and I was so happy to wear her and finally be in fursuit at a fur convention. How I made her hand paws and tail, as well as the TFF 2025 vlog, will be up on my channel, so make sure you're subscribed. Thank you!